You might be interested in controlling dfeedback's parameters remotely over your network while using the officially supported Windows setup with VSTHost. A reasonable option is to use the OSC protocol, since this is already built into VSTHost. You might want to do this to automate the strength of the plugin or bypass it altogether, and you can easily do this from another computer or a tablet, QLab, and so on. So first I'll share how I do this with my TouchOSC layout, and then after that I'll explain how to do this generically. So if you just want to see the OSC addressing part, you can skip ahead. The first step is to enable OSC inside of VSTHost. You can do this from the Engine menu by going to Configure, and then to the OSC tab. It'll come with the transport set to none, and you'll want to set this to UDP. I would leave the port at the default, which is 7701, because that's what's already coded into the TouchOSC layout. And note that you only need to make this change one time, and VSTHost will remember it. You don't need to save your performance or anything like that. Next, you'll want to download the TouchOSC layout from the GitHub page under Releases. To get the latest release, it's a TouchOSC file. Now you want to open this in TouchOSC. Now, the first thing you need to check is our connections. So from the Connections menu, go to OSC. You can see I've already set up my first connection slot with the UDP, the hostname or IP of the dfeedback server that you have running. In my case, it's called dfeedback.lan, but yours might just be an IP address. I recommend you use a either static IP address or a static DHCP reservation, so it's always the same. And then this is the port that we set back in the VSTHost. Now, assuming your firewalls are open and there's nothing else blocking it, you can hit Run, and it'll query the current state of the plugin. Of course, this is set up for the 4-instance performance mode right now. Now, if for some reason you've customized the layout here in the performance section of VSTHost, you may need to make a couple of tweaks. You'll notice that each of the dfeedback instances has a number next to it. In this case, it starts at 2, 3, 4, and 5. And those are the plugin slot numbers that we're going to use. So to control this one, you need to use 2, or to control this one, you need to use 3. It's set up this way by default, but if you need to change that, just click on one of these fader groups here. And when you scroll down to the control section, look for the tag, and that's where you put the number. So in my case, it's just 2, 3, 4, and 5. If yours are different, you would put those numbers there. So just a quick explanation of some of the controls. Let me try to put these side by side again. So as you saw before, when you first run the TouchOSC layout, it queries the latest parameters from VSTHost. You can then make any tweaks you want to either the strength, you can see it happening in real time below, the mute. You can also do the bypass, which doesn't show in this screen, but you can always look at the control section here, which doesn't update in real time, but the bypass is off. Now the bypass is on. There's this sort of undo or reset button. What this does is it resets to the last refreshed value from VSTHost. As you saw before, when we first loaded it, all the strengths began at 80%. So this will reset the values back to there. And the purpose of this is just to allow you to make a quick change to the strength and then maybe jump back to your normal operating value. And just to point out, it's not an undo of this fader in TouchOSC. I can make several changes in a row. It's going to go back to the previous refreshed value. Of course, this means that if you were to make a change and then refresh, this becomes the new normal. So 37, you can see if I make a change and undo, it'll go back to 37. And as you may have guessed, the refresh button pulls in the current state of the strength, mute, and bypass from VSTHost. And notice they don't update in real time. And this was an intentional move because we don't want a lot of extra network traffic happening while dfeedback is trying to process audio. So it's an on-demand kind of an action when you're in a good place in your show where you feel like you can make a change. I would recommend using that as the time to do it. And then you can hit refresh in there and it will pull the latest values from VSTHost. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to do this generically so you can integrate it with your own OSC client. Okay, so I have a little demo environment here where I'm setting up an OSC bidirectional connection to my dfeedback host. And it's using the same port that we set up in VSTHost. And now I'm going to send it direct OSC commands. So the format is /plugin, then the plugin number. Now, as I mentioned before, each one of these plugins has a number at the beginning. So this is 2, 3, 4, and 5. So if I wanted to control my second dfeedback instance, this one, it says 3 here. It also says it at the top of this window. So I would type /plugin/3, and then the next argument is parameter, a slash, and then you need the parameter number. You can get that number for any plugin that's in VSTHost by going to the Edit Parameters box here. And you can see there are 3 parameters that we're able to control. The first is the strength, the second is mute, and the third is bypass. And they're numbered from 0 upwards. So strength is 0, mute is 1, and bypass is 2. So let's say I wanted to change the strength. I would use parameter 0. And then the value we send, in this case, is going to be a float between 0 and 1. It's a percentage, so if I wanted to make it 50%, I would use 0.5. Now, as I mentioned before, this edit parameter window does not update in real time, so we should be looking down here at this strength to change to 50% when I hit enter here. And there it does. If I wanted to mute the plugin, I would change this to parameter 1 and set a value of true. As you can see, it muted. I'll make that easier to see. I'll set this to false. Yeah. The way you can receive the current value is by sending an argument-free command with the parameter you want. So if I wanted to get the current strength of plugin number 1, which is 79%, I would find my first plugin, which is index 2. So we'll change that to plugin index 2, parameter 0, which we know is strength, and I'm not going to send it any value. And it returns, well, approximately 79%. I can, of course, now change that value by setting it to whatever I want. Let's say 100%. So anyway, I hope this sheds a little light on how you can remotely control the parameters of dfeedback in VSTHost using the OSC protocol. Thanks for watching.